Hey everybody, JC here with another T&I toy review. And for today's review, we're going to take a look at the new DC Collectibles 6-inch The New Batman Adventures Batman figure. Now this new line of figures based on the 90s Batman the Animated Series / The New Batman Adventures cartoon is possibly one of the most highly anticipated lines that DC Collectibles has done to date. And I've got to say they really don't disappoint with this first figure. The figure comes packaged on a blue and black card back that has basically some darkened in images that look like are from the animated series of Batman, Nightwing, and Robin. The figure's clearly displayed in the blister packaging. You've got the Batman 75th logo up in the top left corner. Then the figure's displayed along with the name of the character. Down below that you have the number 01, which indicates this is the first figure in this series, and then you've got the New Batman Adventures logo below that. And then off to the side it tells us that this figure was sculpted by Irene Matar. Then on the back of the packaging we simply just have kind of a reversal of colors of that black and blue with, again, darkened in, well, with white shaded images of Batman, Nightwing, and Robin. Okay, so let's get this figure open and take a look at what's inside. Okay, so here's a look at the figure outside of the packaging. Now, as I mentioned before, this figure is based on the new Batman Adventures cartoon, which aired on the WB network back in 1997. And this version of Batman differed a little bit from the original Batman the Animated Series version. Most notably, his bat symbol on his chest is all black as opposed to the yellow with background with the black bat. The cape and the boots and the underwear and gloves are all black as opposed to having dark blues mixed in with it. And then the belt, utility belt, instead of being yellow, is more of a tan color, and it's got pouches, more like a military type belt as opposed to the traditional capsules and stuff that you sometimes see on his utility belt. The detail on this figure, though, is pretty nice. I think DC Collectibles has done a great job with capturing the look from that old cartoon, the blocky look that we're accustomed to with these designs. I think stand out nicely on this figure, and the paint apps for the most part are pretty solid. Now I do want to point out that with my figure there are a few little blemishes, like on his leg here you can kind of see it looks like a scratch mark on the gray color on his leg. I don't know how well it stands out on the camera. And then he's got a little nick on his boot, where some paint has scraped off. But for the most part I think it's a pretty solid job here, and I'm really impressed with what we've gotten here. So the figure comes with 4 sets of interchangeable hands. The first set of hands are closed-fisted, and these are the ones that are attached to come attached to the figure when you actually take it out of the packaging. And the hands themselves, they're just little pegs, and they do have hinge joints, and we'll look more closely at that when we look at the articulation. But all the hands do have hinge joints on them. The second pair of hands he comes with are a little bit more opened. This is good for holding the batarang, which is a thin piece of plastic that he comes with. And they're both basically sculpted very similarly. And then he has a pair of hands that are a little bit more open. You can still get the batarang in this one, and you can also kind of wedge in the grapple gun that he comes with. And we'll look at those accessories in just a minute. But then the final pair of hands he comes with are a more open pair of hands. And again, you can use the one hand, his left hand, for holding the grapple gun that comes with. Or on the right hand of this set, it has actually got a grapple gun sculpted in the hand. So you actually get 2 grapple guns with this figure. One that's basically a separate piece, and then one that's sculpted with the actual fist. And this grapple gun, just like the other grapple gun that the figure comes with, has a removable hook. There's no string or anything, but you can pretend to fire it off, which is kind of cool. And then, like I said, here's a look at the batarang that he comes with. It's a very thin piece of plastic, got kind of a pointy tips, which is cool, and it's shaped like a bat, of course. And then here's a look at the second grapple gun that he comes with, which is the separate piece, which you can have him hold in several of the hands. And again, it has that piece, the hook, that actually you can pull off to act as if it's firing off. The figure also comes with a little checklist that shows other figures in this line that are going to be released on the one side, and then on the other side it's just got the Batman the Animated Series and the new Batman Adventures logos on it. And finally, this figure actually comes with two different capes. The capes are, you know, a vinyl type material like we typically see with the capes in the DC Collectibles line. It has movement and flexibility, but it actually comes with two. So the first cape that is actually on the figure when you open it is more of a flowing kind of cape. Looks a little bit more like it's blowing in the wind. It's not really covering his shoulders very much, so he's got more arm movement with this cape. And then if you want to basically switch the capes out, you just pop his head off, and it can be a little challenging to get the head to pop off. You kind of have to pull pretty good. But you just pop it off, and there he is without his cape. And then you take the other cape, which is more of a static looking cape, and this covers his shoulders, so he's got less arm movement with this particular cape on. But you just put it over top, and then you pop the head back on. So this is more like if he's just standing around or trying to look maybe a little more menacing. I like the more flowing cape just because you get more movement with the figure and everything, but I think it's pretty cool that they've given us two different capes with this figure. So I mentioned this before, but I just want to reiterate that this figure is actually done in a 6-inch scale as opposed to the typical 7-inch scale that we normally see from DC Collectibles. This particular figure stands about 6 1/4 inches tall. So you can see here he is next to a typical, here's the Greg Capullo Batman, which is in 7-inch scale, which is a typical scale for DC Collectibles, and you can see he's a bit taller. Here he is next to a Marvel Legends Captain America figure, and you can see they're about the same size. So this figure would be in scale with your Marvel Legends or other 6-inch line figures if you were so inclined. Articulation on this figure is really good. It has far more articulation than your normal DC Collectibles figure generally has. Like with the accessories, you know, DC Collectibles has really kind of gone all out on this figure. So we'll look at it real quick here. For the head, it's on that ball joint, but he actually, you know, he can look left and right with no problem. And then he also can look up and down pretty good. You can get his head up about that much, so, and then he can look down as well. So you really get some good movement with the head on this figure, surprisingly. The arms are on those ball hinge joints, and you can do it out like that. You've got the rotation there at the shoulder. You can't, with the way the ball joint is sculpted though, you can't just do it straight out. You kind of have to turn the arm if you want to get him to get his arm straight out like that. He does have a bicep swivel. Actually, it's at the elbow. The swivel is at the elbow joint. And it's a single hinged elbow, so he can bend his elbow about that much. And then he's got the swivel at the wrist, and he does have the hinges on the hands. So he's got the up and down movement with the hands. He does not have an ab crunch of any kind, but he does have a swivel at the waist. And then the legs are on those hinge type joints, so he can do the splits good. And he can get his legs out pretty good. The belt limits a little bit of the forward movement, but for the most part he can get his leg forward pretty good, and then he can get his leg back pretty good. So you've got pretty good movement there. You do have these pins that are on the front, which kind of take a little bit away from the look of the figure, but I can frankly live with that to get a figure that has decent articulation. The knee joints are single hinge. There's no thigh swivel on this figure. And then he does have ankle pivots in the hinge there. So good movement at the ankle. And then the figure does have 2 peg holes on the bottom of his feet. Okay, so that's my review. Overall, I think this is a great figure. I think DC Collectibles has done a really good job with it, giving us a lot of accessories, giving us good articulation, a few minor paint scuffs, but for the most part, a very solid looking figure, very true to that 90s cartoon. Which so many fans, grew up on and love. So, I think this was a very highly anticipated line, and I don't think DC Collectibles has disappointed. This figure is hitting comic and specialty shops now, so if you want to try and pick it up, start checking your local shop or favorite retailer that sells DC Collectibles. And that's my review. Until next time, please leave a comment. Let us know what you think. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And until next time, I'll catch you later.